This is LiveWell Talk on medicine, color, culture, and equity. I'm Dr. Dustin Arnold, Chief Medical Officer at UnityPoint Health, St. Luke's Hospital. Today's podcast is the first installment of a mini-series highlighting our team members' diversity, backgrounds, as well as cultural and, quite frankly, color, and how that fits into the healthcare team. With Martin Luther King Day coming up and Black History Month next month in February, we're going to focus on essentially being Black in medicine, what it means, the struggles, the role models, the challenges, the successes, and the historical aspect of that. And my guest today is Marcus Cooper, who's a member of the Diversity Inclusion Committee, as well as a certified surgical technologist at St. Luke's. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming. First of all, tell me how'd you get into surgical technology?
Well, it's a long story, so I try to keep it short. I actually never thought about being in medicine. Never thought about doing what I do. I actually got into it by a freak accident. I tore my Achilles and I lost my job, and I laid in bed with a blue cast on. And I asked the question, what I'm going to do now? What I'm going to do with my life. I've worked pretty much labor jobs, pretty much dead-end jobs since I was 18. Married, 2 kids, house, car notes, And as I laid there and I said that, my wife looked at me. She said, "Why don't you go back to school?" And I told her, I said, "I'm dumb." I was like, "Don't you see what I did in school?" I barely graduated high school, went to college because everybody said, go to college. Didn't know what for. Dropped out, just worked. And she said, "What interests you? In your time of living between then and now, what has interested you?" And I sat back and I thought about it. And I said, watching my kids born. I got to see the C-section. I mean, I literally walked down at the end. What's that? What's that? And, cracking jokes with the doctors and things. Well, she said, "The people in blue, you can go to school for that, and that's about a year." I was like, okay. I sat down, muddled it over. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Went to school, and with the desire that I had to, do something with myself, got on the dean's list, got on the president's list, got scholarships, and got into the surgical tech program, graduated in 2016, 2014. And then I worked at Iowa Ortho right after that in Des Moines. Mm-hmm. And been doing that ever since.
So then you just kind of stayed with the orthopedic spinal.
Just stayed with it.
Yeah.
Stayed with it. Yep.
Well, I tell young people all the time that, if you don't want to go to medical school, it's a long road, but it's worthwhile. I said, look at surgical technologist, MRI technician, ultrasound. I mean, pays decent, and it's really exciting.
Yeah. But a lot of it is I didn't know. I wasn't exposed to it. My mother wanted me to get into something, wanted me to be a physical therapist. Being young, you kind of, whatever, I want to play football.
Right.
I want to do this, I want to do that. But as you get older, you don't think about there's more besides the 4-year programs.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, I think, we could do another podcast on the junior college and trade schools and how you need those. I mean, when you want a mechanic and a plumber in your family before you want a doctor, right?
That's right.
So that's just that there. Now, I want this series on diversity in medicine, being Black in medicine, particularly coming up with Martin Luther King Day, as well as the Black History Month. I really want to have some conversations that just quite frankly will be uncomfortable for some people, but it's not intended. You and I, as we were discussing this, putting this series together, that whether you believe it's racism or systemic racism or not, the facts are that Black people have a higher incidence of cancer.
Yes.
Black people are more likely to die during childbirth.
Yes.
I mean, those are facts.
Those facts.
You can't deny that.
Mhm.
And you still need to be aware of those facts and adjust appropriately and make some strive to equal that out.
Right. Right.
Tell me about some of the challenges that you faced in your journey.
Well, it's been interesting. I've honestly been blessed in that being in the medical field, I've navigated. You learn to navigate being Black. Is just the truth. You know how to talk. You know, not to get an attitude because you become the angry Black man or angry Black woman. You might seem ghetto or things like that. So I've been very, cautious of how I deal with people. And luckily, by my natural nature, I get along with people. But I've also came across situations that ruffled my feathers, and people tend to try to speak to you in a certain way, whether you knew or being Black. But you get a sense of, okay, I don't belong. These are my people, these are not yours. Or I might speak in my, Black American vernacular, and been mocked for it. And so you learn as being a Black man or woman to hold it in. Unfortunately, becomes part of stress.
Right.
To die from stress. But you can tend to hold it in and just keep moving. And I let my work speak for me. And so besides that, I have one story where a guy in Des Moines, he broke his collarbone and he did not want Black people in his surgery or touching him. The physician I was working with, he was Puerto Rican, but he was very fair skinned. So the guy didn't know, but he spoke to him and he told the guy, I have a Black man in my room. I trust him. Now, if you don't like that, you can leave. And from that day, that place, I ortho put in that policy that if you have any racial biases, you can't come here.
Yeah, yeah.
And so those luckily, I've been fortunate, but things do happen.
I think that's a great perspective that you give. And I think really people I can sit here and think of times where I've been in a group that I felt uncomfortable. I measured everything I said. Mm-hmm. I measured how I stood, where I stood, how I reacted to conversation. And, whether or not we can all think of those situations, mm-hmm. You're given the perspective that you get in a position where you could feel like that every day. Every day.
Well, and a lot of times I'm the only one in the room or on the floor, in the classroom, wherever I am. It's not that many of us in Iowa. And so you will likely be 1 out of the 10 in the room. And now there's 2, then it becomes tribal because we're relying on each other. Like, you got my back, I got yours.
Right.
And so you will see that in medical, places or just everyday life. People ask questions like, why are those 2 always together? I've heard that here. Why are they always hanging together? Well, we're the only ones here. I get along with everybody, but there's a difference.
Whether it sounds bad, but we like our own tribe. That's who we identify with. Culture, I say, is behavior and beliefs. Mm-hmm. What do you believe? How do you behave?
Right.
And so you gravitate towards people that you believe the same and behave the same way.
Exactly.
Now, the thing is, whether we realize it or not, I shouldn't say we like it or not, mm-hmm. is we kind of share a lot of the same beliefs and values.
We do.
We share more than we don't share. That's for sure.
That is true.
That is an interesting perspective because you're right. I mean, Black population in Cedar Rapids is less than 10%, and nationally it's 12.
If that's 12, maybe 13.
Yeah. So and it's grown in the recent years. Mm-hmm. I can remember going to high school. Arnold, when he was a good friend of mine, I still keep in contact with him. He was the only Black person I ever knew until I went to So it has grown from that standpoint, which is a good thing. Did you have a role model that or a mentor along the way that you could share a story about?
I've had a lot of. I was blessed. I grew up with my father at home. He was a good man. He did the best that he could, and he only had a high school diploma. My mother went on; she got a degree as being a respiratory therapist. And so, as I grew up, I had different big brothers in life that kind of taught me how to be a good person. But as far as like aiming for like a degree, aiming for some type of career, I didn't have that. I just had be a good man, treat your family right, treat people right.
Yeah.
But no, I'm kind of the in my eyes, the forerunner. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to instill that in my boys. Luckily, one wants to be a doctor, the other one wants to be an engineer. And so, kind of input in them what I've learned. And this is the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but no, I'm kind of here on my own.
I had a similar in the fact I had a lot of big brothers along the way.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people and some big sisters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people that just brought out the best in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being around them was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just amplified over the years, and very grateful for those mentors along the way, because you need a mentor. You need someone to you need to instill that wisdom in your boys now, because once they get older, they'll think you don't know what you're talking about.
So
and because that's where mine are at this time.
It starts now. I know you're only 12 years old. You don't know nothing.
Right. Let's talk about the COVID vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a nice article about your decision to take it and some of the historical aspects of that.
Yes.
With black population. They came out and said, "Oh, well, we need to give it to the minorities and people of color first."
Mm-hmm.
That hasn't been done in the best motivation historically, has it?
No, it has not. It has not. Typically, when history and facts, you can't change these things. When it comes to preserving the population, they always went with the poor or black or brown people. That's what history says, because they know either when we were enslaved, we didn't have no choice.
Right.
You did what you're supposed to do, or what your owner told you to do. And a lot of those owners, through history, were physicians. They kind of, and you had to do patchwork and things of that nature for your chattel, is what we would call it. And so you have that going through. So to preserve the majority, which is white folks, they practice on us to get the technique right. It's been without anesthesia. It's been being held down by 3 or more people, even incorporating other slaves to hold you down. And so you have to, that history is with us. And we're taught this once we are able to read and understand. And so my 38 years on this earth and the history that I know that you can't change, that didn't sound right.
There is a significant history of medicine of it being very Eurocentric, or
Mm-hmm.
Coming out. A lot of our medical discoveries were out of Europe, particularly Germany,
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the World War I, and that doesn't necessarily. A lot of it applies to everyone else, but sometimes you have to think about it a little bit differently when you have different cultures that you're encountering,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to. So if you're a physician and you walk into that exam room, and you're not saying to yourself, "Okay, I need to build some trust with this patient of mine, because historically they may have some doubts whether or not I have their best interest."
Exactly.
And
it's big, and since there's about 13% of us in the U.S., is maybe 3% black doctors, maybe. And so, and we saw, I talked about this a little bit the other day. When you come into into an operating room or in a room, if you see somebody who look like you, there's a sense of comfort. There's like,
absolutely.
he knows who I am.
Yeah.
And there's a unwritten rule, unwritten trust, like, okay, we got each other. And so for a white physician or maybe even Asian, you have a lot of Indian doctors and things of that nature, Asian, Chinese doctors, you know, you have to build that rapport. You have to build that I really do want to know how to help you.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
And that takes, multiple visits, over time. You don't have to have a beer or, go get a burger together, but it's just setting the tone. Like with any situation, with any date, any first date.
Yeah,
you got to set the tone.
Trust is hard to build.
Easy to break.
And it's easy to lose.
Easy.
And you once you draw on that trust account and you lose it, it's hard to get it back. And so, but if you're not cognizant of whether it's a person of color, whether it's someone with a disability, whether it's somebody that might be transgender, you still have to be cognizant of that and adjust how you are approaching to deliver healthcare to them. So you have part of your patients that might have some mistrust with healthcare, but then you have the flip side of that. So it is difficult, and as much as people are different, they're also the same.
That's right.
And we have to keep that in mind. Marcus, why do you think there's not more people of color, specifically Black people, in medicine?
Well, I think the bar, there's various reasons. You have, unfortunately, if you have a person that graduated cum laude, done everything right, but their name is funny. They have a Deshaun or, Takara or whatever. Those names, unfortunately, based on stereotypes, based on whatever you've seen on TV or whatever, it throws people. So though he has the skills, he has what he needs, he's gone through the training, but he might be a thug. He might, there's something about him that's not right. But, Terry, that, he does just as well, same training, but will get the job based on his name, maybe because he has some ties on the inside, which a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Or just he fits the idea of the company.
Perpetuates the system that you have.
He has the crew cut, he wear polo, he fits it. But, Deshaun, he might, he comes with his suit on, but he got a high top fade, or he wears an afro. Or Nicole, she graduates, she's fine, but she likes to wear her hair natural. She doesn't wear a perm. Those things, which means seem small, are big because we know we have to look a certain way. We have to be this way. Somebody can come with a 5 a.m. We can't really do that because, he's lazy. I'm not lazy. I just didn't feel like it, But that stems into, the idea that Black people are lazy or things like that, which was a actual science by, I got his name right here, actually, Dr. Samuel Adolphus Cartwright. He came up with that theory, which was eventually debunked, but a lot of people used it and they took away slaves' food. He said it could be cured by beatings. Slaves, they didn't want to work or want to escape for their freedom. No, they're just mad. We beat it out of them. He'll be fine. So those stereotypes, as weird as it is, it travels. The more things change, the more it stays the same.
It's interesting that sometimes I have some discomfort with, particularly during this election, when people say, follow the science. It's the science. Well, yes, there is science, but I don't like how this is just because someone with a white coat says it, you shouldn't question it.
Right.
And really this doesn't apply so much to race or anything like that. It's just, some bad things have happened because of science, because bad people use science to justify what they were doing.
Exactly.
And so I don't like that follow the science or it just, the science is settled. No, it's never settled.
It's never settled.
And it can't, in full disclosure, the other day, I can't even remember the name. I saw a name on a patient and I just assumed they were African American, and they weren't. And I was like, wow, it kind of made me laugh in a way, like, why did you think that anyway? Who cares?
But you're trained.
No, you're absolutely right.
It is what it is. You're trained. I assume you grew up in Iowa your whole life.
Yeah, this is Cedar Rapids.
So you're trained in seeing Tim, most likely is white. Todd, most likely is white. Marcus, maybe. Tisha, oh, she's black. You're trained that way. So when you have a black doctor trying to apply for something or trying to get into a specific specialty, he can't get that because he doesn't fit or she doesn't fit that. And, there's a lot of people who don't want to fall into the same old, I have to be this, I have to look this way, I have to talk this way. It's not who I am. I want to be who I am freely. And so you have physicians that can't do that because of their sadly name, their look. They can't get into the medical school. Unfortunately, my wife, she teaches at the University of Iowa, and she's she's professor of nursing. She's very into recruiting, trying to recruit people of color. She only gets maybe one in the student of nursing. They don't reach out to get people who want to be nurses, who want to be doctors, PAs. It's hard to get in there. Yeah. They have this curricular where people who may not learn the same way, but have good grades, but they come from a certain population.
Well, and then I think it was kind of been Thomas Sowell. I was watching one of his interviews once, and he said sometimes then people intervene and make things worse because, okay, you have a black student that has good grades, smart, but then they say, well, we're Harvard, we're going to bring up to Harvard, and you're throwing them in. Let's say he's in the 75th percentile. Now you just throw him in with the people that are in the 1%,
right,
that are really super smart, and then they struggle. Where if they would go to just a decent state school, University of Michigan or something,
right,
they would just flourish. So sometimes the best intentions make things worse.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times, in some cases, I can't say a lot of times, some cases it's a setup. Because America, at times, in my opinion, don't want to see us flourish. Because if you motivate a group of people that actually be something, then you can't really control the herd. You know what I'm saying? And so it's sad. So people become flat, deflated.
Apathetic. They just don't want to participate.
They don't want to, it's like
disenfranchised.
Why should I?
Yeah.
If this is the headache I got to deal with, I'm like, people don't understand the kind of people that you have. You have doctors, you have pharmacists, you have all these people in the hood that can be some natural leaders. All they need is an opportunity, but they don't get it because of something stupid. And then if you're stuck in a certain situation, then you feel like this is my situation.
Yeah.
And so it's and then you hear, why can't you pull yourself up by the bootstraps? Well, first and foremost, I don't have the boots.
Right.
If I had boots, maybe, but if I got boots, I don't have the straps.
Give me the boots first, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think that's great insight. Marcus, I want to thank you for joining me today and sharing these stories. And I look forward to having you back and continue this conversation. And because I think there's a lot we can learn from each other.
Yes.
And I think when it's all said and done, we'll find that we have a lot more in common than we have different.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, this is Marcus Cooper, certified surgical technologist at St. Luke's. Be sure to join us next month for the second installment of our mini-series.
Thank you for listening to LiveWell Talk On. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your family, friends, neighbors, strangers about our podcast. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, be well.